military retirees die sooner than other people. Hey, I am Chuck the bureaucrat, and there's this story that I'm sure you've heard before. Somebody that you know knows somebody who knew a sergeant major who retired at age 50 with 30 years of service, and 2 months later they were dead. It's a story that sparks a lot of speculation, and while I'm sure that it does happen sometimes, the real question should be, do military retirees have a shorter lifespan than people who didn't have a lifetime of service? To get at this question, we're going to look at 3 reports. 2 of them were done by the Department of Veterans Affairs and was focused on U.S. military service members, and the last one looks at Israeli retirees. You'll see why we have to go outside the U.S. in a second. To get started, the VA did a study in 2017 looking at the mortality rates and life expectancies of veterans from 1980 to 2014. In classic bureaucratic style, they slice and dice this data so many ways that it absolutely makes my head spin. So I don't want to drag you through all of the details. Instead, I just want to hit their main point by showing you this chart. Here, the VA compares the mortality rate of veterans, represented in solid lines, and the general public, represented in dotted lines. And of course, they've broken the data down by gender, so boys are in blue and girls are in pink. The visual takeaway is that the mortality rate among veterans is slightly higher than for the general public. In fact, the report estimates that life expectancy for males is somewhere around 0.7 to 0.9 years shorter, and for females, it's 1.2 to 1.3 years shorter. Now, those horses in the audience probably noticed that there are some dead giveaways about this chart that suggest that the analysts, well, they didn't get the highest level of peer review. The low quality of the chart also hints that there may be some issues with the analysis and probably with the data itself. And interestingly, one of the biggest issues with the VA is they tend to lack information about the oldest and the healthiest veterans. So the VA sees a higher mortality rate because the VA doesn't see happy, healthy veterans. Now, one subset of the veterans community that the VA does see very clearly is those with a 100% disability rating. In a 2001 study, the VA focused on the mortality of these folks. What they found was that males with a 100% rating lived on average to age 68, which is a 11% diminished life expectancy. But the real kicker in this report was that females with 100% ratings had an average age of 63, and that is a 22% reduction in life expectancy. Now, this report doesn't offer any suggestion about why the effect on women would be so much more severe than men. They just make a note that it is a grave observation. But the authors do make an important point about the causality of this shorter lifespan. Veterans with 100% disability ratings have a whole host of illnesses and injuries which are likely to contribute to a shorter lifespan. Cancers, heart disease, diabetes, lupus, colitis. It's a long list. So it's not exactly like being 100% disabled shortens your lifespan. It's more like veterans who have conditions that shorten their lifespans are far more likely to have a 100% disability rating. Nevertheless, all of this does tend to point in the direction of, yeah, there is something about military service that tends to shorten lifespan. However, there was a 2015 study of retired Israeli military that found that about 68% of the retired military personnel lived longer than their average civilian counterparts, with the likelihood of longer life being greater for retired military women. In fact, this paper goes so far as to refer to it as the protective effect of military service on lifespan. I'm not sure I'd go that far, but this paper does make 2 points that are worth considering. First, notice that the VA studies tended to focus on average life expectancy, while the Israeli study focused on the probability of outliving the average civilian. You might imagine that if you took a sample of 10 veterans and one of them died 2 months after retirement, well, even if the other 9 outlived the average civilian, the average life expectancy for that sample is going to be lower than the average civilian life expectancy. And second, notice that the paper on the Israeli military focused on retirees, while the VA focused on veterans. I am suspicious that there is a bit of a survivor bias among the retired population. People who would die with an aneurysm at age 45, well, they've been filtered out of the Israeli data, but they've been left in the VA's data. So I'm not sure that there is a good, hard, and fast answer to all of this. But I'm going to leave you with an observation from my physical therapist. A thought that one way or another is probably a good one to keep in mind as you navigate your military transition. She is a physical therapist who works in Crystal City. That's walking distance to the Pentagon. And so she sees lots and lots of military and retirees every day. And the thing that she cautioned me against is behaving like you're 25 years old. What she said, and some of you might identify with this, is that a lot of 55-year-old military retirees think they're still 25 years old. Back when they were 25, they could take 2 weeks off of training and eat anything they wanted. They could spend the weekend blackout drunk and then wake up Monday morning and lead a 7-mile ruck march. They would work like a dog all through the week, be up till 2 a.m. on Thursday night, and then on Friday morning, they would get up for a 5 a.m. PT test and max it. When they were 25, they could endure these massive surges of physical activity. But at age 55, those kinds of surges, well, they might not kill a man, but they certainly aren't a healthy way to maintain your body. And yet, many newly retired military still behave as if they're 25. I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts on the matter. You guys often have insights that I hadn't even considered. But just between you and me, I intend to squeeze as many years of pension out of Uncle Sam as I can. And that means that I am highly motivated to beat the average lifespan. So if you guys have tips, I am all ears. And if you want to take this discussion about the changes you experience as you move through different ages, watch this video about the different stages of a person's life and how military retirement lands at a funny place.